In this guide, you'll implement a simple JSON modding system in Python. We'll be coding a character creation system where you can select a race and a profession for your character. With the modding system, you'll be able to add or remove character options without touching the code. So this is the starter code here inside of main.py, and as you can see, it imports the OS module, which we'll be using later on. First, we need to create a player class, which will store the player character's race and profession. We'll set the race and profession to none by default. So we'll just do class, player, define, init, self.race is equal to none, self.profession is equal to none also. Next, we'll create a game class that will store the player as well as the available race and profession options. We'll initialize the player class and initialize empty list for the races and professions. So we'll do class, game, define, init, self.player is equal to player, self.races is equal to an empty list, and then self.professions is equal to an empty list also. Now we have to create the JSON files that will determine what races and professions will show up during character creation. But first we need to create a folder inside of our project folder that will store those files. So I'm going to create a folder named data. Now inside of this data folder, we're going to create a JSON file that defines our first set of character races. You can name the file whatever you want, but it needs to start with races underscore as the prefix. So I'll show you real quick. New document. So it needs to start with races underscore like that. So the prefix helps us determine what kind of data this particular JSON file contains. This will be useful later on when we code the logic that actually parses this data into the game. So I want to add Elder Scrolls races into the game. So I'll name my file races underscore Elder Scrolls, if I could spell it, and then .json is the extension. Now we're just going to open this up. So now we're going to add our races into the JSON file as strings inside of a list. So we'll start with empty list, and now I'm going to start adding in the races. So we'll start with Argonian, Breton, Dark Elf, High Elf, Imperial, Khajiit, Nord, Orc, Red Guard, and finally Wood Elf. So the modding system is going to allow us to parse in multiple JSON files. So this means that you can have different files that each define their own races. So we'll just go back and add another file here. So we'll do races underscore, and I think this time we'll do Kenchi. Change this to JSON. Open this up also. And then we'll basically just repeat the process. So we'll start with a list, and then inside we'll start listing off our races that we want in the game. So we'll do Hive Prince, Hive Soldier Prince, Hive Worker Drone, Greenlander, Scorchlander, Check, and then finally we'll do Skeleton. Now we're going to do the same thing for our professions. So we're just going to create another JSON file, but this time it's going to have the prefix of professions underscore. And then again, we'll do professions underscore Elder Scrolls JSON. Open it up. And then we'll keep this list here simple. So we have a list, and then we'll just do the classic mage, thief, and then warrior. And then we'll just add another professions file here. So professions underscore Kenchi JSON. Open it up so we can add stuff into it. And so the races that I want, not the races, but the professions that I want in this file are cook, engineer, and then outlaw. So next we need to create the logic that actually parses the JSON files into the game. So we'll place it inside of a file called dataparsing.py. So first we need to create that file. Dataparsing.py. Open it up. Now inside the file, we will import JSON and the OS module. So import JSON and then import OS. Then we'll create a function called load_data that takes the game object and the data folder path as parameters. So define load_data. Game data_path is equal to data. That's the default path. And then pass for right now. Next, we'll iterate through each file inside of the data folder. So for each file in os.list directory, inside of this data path here, and then we'll do pass for right now. So if the current file doesn't have the .json file extension, we'll skip it and go to the next file in the folder. So if not file that ends with .json, just continue. Now, if the current file does have a .json extension, we'll combine the data folder path with the file path. So here we'll do path is equal to os.path.join, pass in the data path, and then the file. So now we'll open the JSON file in read mode so we can access its contents. So with open path R encoding is equal to, it's kind of behind here. Encoding is equal to UTF-8 as F. We'll pass for right now. All right, so then the next thing we're going to do is actually load the JSON into Python. So data is equal to JSON.load F. Okay. So next we'll get the JSON files prefix. So prefix is equal to file.split underscore. We're going to get the first index, and then we're going to add the underscore back to it. So based on the prefix, we're going to call a specific function to parse the data. If the prefix is races underscore, we'll call the function load underscore races. If the prefix is professions underscore, we'll call load underscore professions. First, we need to create those functions. So load underscore races is going to take in the game object and the loaded JSON data as parameters. So define load underscore races, game, and then data. Next, we'll store the races that are inside of the JSON data in the game object's races list. We'll combine the existing races list with the newly loaded data. So we have game.races is equal to game.races plus data. Then we'll convert it into a dictionary to prevent duplicates. So right here, we do dictionary from keys. Now finally, we'll convert the dictionary back into a list. So we just put parentheses around this and then type in list in front. So basically we're going to do the same thing for load profession. So really you can just copy this function here, copy it, paste, and just change races to professions here. So it should be load professions game.professions, and then game.professions plus data. Now we'll store those two functions inside of a global dictionary called prefix_loaders, using the file prefixes as the keys. So down here, let's do prefix_loaders is equal to a dictionary. And inside, we'll do races_load races professions_load professions. Now back inside of load_data, we can now get the proper loader function by using the prefix. So right here, underneath where we got our prefix, we'll do loader function is equal to prefix_loaders dot get, and then we're going to pass in the prefix. Finally, if the loader function exists, we want to call it and pass in the game object and the JSON data. So if loader_function, then loader_function game, and then pass in data. Now that the parser is done, we'll want to quickly test it before continuing. So we'll have to go back to our main.py file here and import the data parsing.py. So right here, we'll do import data parsing. Now inside of this if statement here, we are going to initialize the game object. So we'll do game is equal to game. And then we're going to call the load_data function, which is inside of the data parsing.py. So we'll do data parsing.load_data and then pass in the game object. And then finally, we'll print the game.races and game.professions to ensure that everything is being parsed correctly. So we'll do print game.races, print, we'll just put it like a space here for a little bit of formatting, and then print game.professions. Now, if you run the code, you should see both your games, races, and professions printed in the console. So as you can see up here, we have all of our races that we kind of like modded into the game. And then right here, we have all of our professions. All right, so now that the JSON parser is working, the next step is to implement the parse data into a character creation system. So first, we need to remove the test code here, like that. So the character creation system is going to have multiple screens. We'll start by creating a function that will print out a formatted title for each screen. So up here, we'll call it print_title. So define print_title, and it's going to take in a string called title. So the first thing we want to do here is clear the console. So we'll do os.system clear screen. So the display title is going to be printed in between two lines of dashes to give it a formatted look. The number of dashes is equal to the number of characters in the title string. So we just do print dash times the length of title, and then we'll duplicate that. Now we just have to print the title in between the two lines of dashes. So we just do print title. The first screen in the character creation system is the race screen. So we'll add a method called choose_race to the game object. So define choose_race. Next, we'll store self.player into a player variable. So we just do player is equal to self.player. While the player doesn't have a valid race, we want to continue displaying the choose race screen. So we'll do while player.race is equal to none. Then we'll display the screen title. So we'll do print_title character creation dash race. Now we'll display each of the race options in a numbered list. So in order to do that, we'll do for I race and enumerate self.races. We'll start with the number 1. We're going to print format I, or the number for the current race option, and then we'll print race. Next, we'll get the player's choice by using a try/except block. So we'll do try, except, value error, pass for right now. So the first thing we want to do right here is get the player's input. So the choice is equal to input. And then we'll sort of give them like a string prompt here, new line, dash, dash, arrow. And then we want to go ahead and convert this user input into an integer. So we'll do int. Second, we'll make sure that the choice maps to one of the races and then assign the race to the player character. So we'll do if 1 is less than or equal to choice, which is less than or equal to the length of self.races. So basically, as long as whatever number the player inputs to choose their race is in between 1 and the maximum number of races there, you want to assign player.race to whatever race that they chose. So in order to get the their chosen race, you'll go to the self.races list and then use the choice -1 to get that race's index. So now if for some reason the choice doesn't map to a race, we'll raise a value error. So we'll do else raise value error. All right, so now this function right here is done. So now we're going to add a create_character method. Define create_character method to the game object here. So do self. And then all we're going to do inside of here is call the choose_race method. So do self.choose_race. All right, so now we just have to go down here inside of our if statement here. And then all we have to do is call game.create_character. All right, so if you run the code, you should see a list of all the race options you modded in and should be able to select one. So I'll just select check. And as you can see, I kind of have a typo there, but that doesn't really matter. So I chose check 16, hit enter, and you should see no errors here. So while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and fix this typo here. Okay, so the next screen we're going to work on is the character profession screen. So pretty much the same process as this. So we're going to do define choose_profession self. So like before, we'll store the self.player inside of a player variable. So we'll do player is equal to self.player. We'll continue displaying the screen as long as player.profession is none. So while player.profession is equal to none, and we'll display the title screen. So print_title character creation -profession. Okay. So then we're going to display the professions as a numbered list. So for I profession and enumerate self.professions start is equal to 1. Print format I, and then we're going to print the profession. All right, so next we'll get the player input and assign the chosen profession to the player character. So again, same process, try, except, value error, pass. So out of here, we will get the player choice. So choice is equal to input. We'll prompt the player, convert this into an integer so we can get the right profession choice. Then make sure that the user entered a valid number. So we'll do if 1 is less than or equal to choice, which is less than or equal to the length of self.professions. And then we'll assign the player the chosen profession. So player.profession is equal to self.professions choice -1. Else raise value error. All right, so finally we'll call choose_profession inside of the create character method. Self.choose_profession. All right, so before we test things, just make sure you don't make the same mistake that I did. I forgot the S here. So it should be self.professions. All right, so let me do this again. All right, so now if you run the code, you should hit the race screen. You should be able to choose one. I'll choose Argonian or 1, enter, and then now you should hit the profession screen. And for this one, I'll just choose 6 for outlaw. And so at the end of that, you should have no errors. All right, so the last thing to do is to display a character sheet so that the player can see what kind of character they created. So we'll need to add a character_sheet method to the game object. So underneath here, we'll do define character_sheet self pass. So now we'll store the self.player inside of a player variable. So player is equal to self.player. And then we'll print the screen name. So print_title is equal to character sheet. And then from here, the character sheet is just going to display the information. So it's really simple. Just do print format race player.race, and then we can do the same thing for profession here. So we'll do print format profession and then player.profession. All right, so finally we just add this method to the end of our character or our create character method. So we'll do self.character_sheet. All right, so this should be our final test here. So again, you test the code, you'll hit the race screen. I put 13 for Hive worker drone. Profession, I'll make them a mage. And then your character sheet, you should see your race that you chose and then your profession that you chose. All right, so you now have a simple JSON modding system that allows you to add new races and professions to your game without modifying the code itself. So this same approach can later be expanded to support things like, I don't know, items, enemies, spells, and quests, basically whatever you want. So that's pretty much it, and thank you for watching.